Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Gotham as well as the latest episode of Arrow. Like always, if I'm talking about something that you want to listen to, you can always look in the description down below. I include a time when I start talking about each of the respective shows. So, for example, if you want to hear what I say about this week's episode of Gotham, you can skip to what I say about this week's episode of Arrow. But the first thing I'm going to talk about is this week's episode of Gotham. A lot of things went down this episode. Got to break down bit by bit. Interesting enough, you had the whole Lee situation. That kind of took a twist I wasn't expecting. Like, they, obviously, Nigma had people follow Jim, so they pulled him back from the explosion. But Lee wants to actually take that information and use it as a means of extorting the mayor. It's like, oh, we got these, we know exactly where the bombs are. You help out the Narrow. In particular, it seemed more so not necessarily about helping the Narrows, but it was about helping Riddler and Lee. Basically kind of ignore all the stuff that they've done, all the criminal stuff, kind of let that go, give them kind of, freedom from that, and then it's kind of like, oh, we'll help you out. And probably, I mean, they weren't asking for money. It seems like that was kind of the main thing, because for them, it's like, even they had to, like, obviously, Ed kind of wanted to use Jim as leverage for that, but it's like, no, like, these bombs will be bad for everyone, especially because if this goes down, it's just going to hurt the Narrows most of all, so. But obviously, long list of things. Many different conversations come up, and I think it's fascinating. First of all, the whole, because obviously Ed's talking about, like, oh, you still have feelings for Jim, which Lee's like, no, what me and Jim had is over. Like, it's just me and you. Everything we do isn't just, you doing it for me, you're doing it for us. But obviously, like, I think Jim kind of got inside of Ed's head too, because he's being like, oh, the fact of the matter is, he's like, you think Lee is with you. It's like, she's not really with you. You're a killer. The fact of the matter is, because he's like, the fact of the matter is that you are trying to rub it in my face, trying to get me to admit it, means you want me to validate it, to, validate something that should already be validated by you, but you need my validation. Means like you're striving, because he's trying too hard to prove his, like, oh, what me and Lee have is great, we're in love, and it's like he's trying too hard because he's overcompensating, because there is a piece of him that thinks that she does, like, he knows she's using him, but on some level there's also a part of his brain that's like, no, she really loves me. And it's like, it's interesting because he threw it in Jim's face, being like, oh, you're 10 times the killer I am. I'm like, really? I mean, I guess maybe if you break down the entire series, maybe he's killed more people than Riddler, which is kind of crazy to think about. But, like, referring to him as, like, 10 times the killer, it's like, all the psychopathic stuff you've done, kiss my ass. Like, anytime Jim's ever killed anyone that's ever been in, like, I mean, obviously he's kind of let the darkness inside of him, but it's not like them innocent people. It's like, come on, shut your mouth. Like, you've done some pretty terrible things, but to go as far as calling Jim the 10 times the killer you are. But even Jim's like, even if that is the case, it doesn't mean anything. He's like, maybe that's why Lee left me. But it's almost like you're talking about all this stuff about why Lee's not with me and everything. But it's like, literally those same reasons can apply to you too. It's like, oh, the reasons you're saying she's not with Jim, it's like, same things kind of apply to you too. It's so interesting because I feel like so much of Riddler's identity is connected to his love life. His love life is kind of what ended up bringing out the darkness in him, the whole, Kirsten situation, the whole Isabella situation, now Lee. It's like his love life kind of dictates him into being the villain that he is to a certain degree. It's a huge point in his life, and so it's definitely going to be interesting going forward, because obviously Jim, when it comes to Lee, obviously he still has feelings for her, but he's like, I'm giving you a way out. You can just leave Gotham, just never come back, just leave by yourself, it's fine. But he's like, and Lee's comment like, what's going to happen if I stay? Which he doesn't really give an answer, but it's kind of, I'm assuming it's like, I'll have to treat you like any other criminal. It's like, I want you to know, but even when I'm leaving here, no matter what choice you make, I loved you and I always will, So Ed's overhearing this conversation, so immediately my brain goes, okay, Ed's going to try and kill Jim now, because he needs to remove him from the equation, because he sees how Lee looks, and it's like he still sees that little smidge of love that might still be there, because no matter how much Lee wants to say that she's over Jim, it's like, no, because he apologized. It's like he's sad that things kind of ended up the way they are between them. It's like all the stuff that they've done, the stuff that they've done to each other, he can't change the past, so But I'm curious to see what he does. Like I said, I think Jim's going to be at the top of his list in the next episode. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Because Jim has himself said it. It's like Lee's just using you. The moment she gets what she wants, you're gone. Like for her, like the only thing she cares about right now is the Narrows. And to be fair, Riddler is a means to an end. Like his smarts can help her get what she needs to take care of the Narrows. So she isn't necessarily the person that, because it's like, yeah, she might not be the person I knew, but she's definitely not the person you think she is. You think she's some villain. It's like, oh, you're doing, like, because even, like, everything Riddler does is for selfish reasons, because it's like, oh, I do this for Lee because of love. It's like, he doesn't really care about the people of De Niro's. That's why she's doing what she's doing. But it's kind of interesting considering the fact is it's hard to say, like, the Ed that's standing before us, is that the Riddler? Because we haven't seen the other Enigma kind of pop up. I mean, it seemed like more so, like, when the whole Lee situation happened, it looked like they might have finally come together as one. So it is Ed and the Riddler kind of coexisting together as one, potentially. Maybe this could be setting him down the path to finally becoming whole again, because so far he's just always been searching for his identity, because like I said, other people has always been his help dictate who he was, essentially. And like I said, his love life is kind of doing that. So I don't know. I'm very interested to see what goes down in this episode. It was also neat finding out the whole situation with Jeremiah's plans and everything, that basically the lines on the map were actually like representations of the buildings that he was going to blow up. Because for him, he wants to obviously start Gotham over again and kind of build it in his image. And once again, I always find that it's interesting, like that even all through this, he's still striving to outdo his brother Jerome. It's like, oh, I'm gonna do everything bigger and better than him. Obviously, like last episode, but like, that's still a big motivation for him. And I find that so interesting. What I didn't kind of see coming was the whole like Barbara, Tabitha, Butch, and Oswald joining the forces to go up against him, but it didn't work out in the long run because, because it's like, oh, we got the core relay, ha ha ha. Now we got his bomb. It's like, oh no, he just blows the dude up with like with a rocket launcher, and it's just like, yep, always has a backup plan. Because the thing is that's sadly who Jerome is. Jerome is actually pretty smart. He's a lot smarter than his brother. Because like I said, and he says it himself, it's like Jerome is very short sighted. Jeremiah kind of thinks about kind of a few steps ahead. So, which I think kind of makes him a very interesting Joker in comparison to his own brother. So. Because the only reason why they got involved, Tabitha and Barbara, is because like, oh yeah, we could get this money, split it 50-50. Because I love it. It's like, oh, we're going to hand this over. He's like, no, of course not. Oswald's like, what we'll do is once we find out where the bombs are and stuff like that, we'll give that information to the mayor and we'll come out as heroes. And it's like, and then Tabitha's like, and then we'll cure Butch. And he's like, Right. That too. Glad to see his priorities. But it kind of blew up in his face. Now he's kind of left alone because even Butch kind of like, I'm done with you. It's just because it's sadly since subsequently joining back up with Penguin, they just had nothing but losing streak after losing streak, and he's done. Barbara and Tabitha are done with him too. Apparently he knows where Strange is. He says he found out just now, but who's to say Oswald had found him out sooner, but he was just hoping to kind of get his little cut of things before kind of even telling Butch about it. Or maybe the whole plan was to kind of continue stringing Butch along, but obviously Butch isn't too big on, I mean, it's like, I want to hurry up and be fixed. Which him being a Solomon Grundy makes me wonder, will they fix him? I kind of don't think so. Because I'm curious to see whether they kind of keep him as Butch Grundy, essentially. Will he kind of still keep his intellect, or will something go, like, will that be something he has to struggle with later on, where it's like he starts losing himself more and more as the whole Grundy situation, or will he be cured? It's going to be interesting, considering if they do, because, like, Grundy being such a character in the comic books itself, I mean, he's such a prolific character. I mean, like, granted, I don't know a lot about him, but it's still like, oh yeah, like, I know Solomon Grundy because of the cartoons, obviously because of the Injustice game, but it's like, it's weird to think about, like, it potentially there not being a him in this universe, essentially. It's kind of something interesting. So I'm curious to see ultimately what that ends up turning into or not. I'm still betting he's not going to walk away from this cured, but maybe him and Tabitha could be a thing. I don't know if Tabitha and Barbara are a thing or not. I mean, they're partners in this whole situation, but I don't know whether they're like together or not. So, but I do love the fact is that Harvey is the one to save the day. I look, because obviously, like, Harvey was kind of handling things without Jim being there, and no cops are listening to him because of the whole pig situation, which sucked. Harvey made a mistake back then, and maybe if he had made up for it beforehand, things wouldn't kind of be where they are right now. But it's like, nope, things are kind of crappy. between him and the other, so they're like not going to be willing to take orders from him. And it was Harvey who ended up saving the day. It kind of just came down to an eeny, meeny, miny, mo when it came to pulling the thing on the bomb. So I thought that was kind of pretty neat. And, you know, Lucius giving a prospect like, give it up for Harvey. Just like, yeah, Harvey saved the day. So that's good. It's good to see that has kind of turned back around, because obviously Harvey wanted to do this anyway because he wanted to make it. It's like, no, I have to be the one to do this, you know? Obviously he thought the bomb squad was going to be with him, but he was like, yeah, the city's on such a limited amount of time. Plus the city got on an even more limited amount of time because of what, Penguin and the others did attacking him. They kind of moved up the timetable anymore. So they were kind of the main reason why the city almost got destroyed even faster. So, but it's kind of interesting because along those same lines, we had the whole Bruce situation. Alfred was kidnapped. Basically, he was put in a situation where it's like, oh, he sees him being tortured and stuff like that. But sadly for Bruce, like the entire time, fear toxin was being pushed in. While like Selena was kicking Scarecrow's ass. That was kind of interesting. It's so interesting just because it's like these are two mainstay villains fighting. I mean, to be fair, anti-hero when it comes to, you know, Catwoman, because she flip-flops a lot. So it's just kind of interesting seeing like, wow, these two prominent Batman figures duking it out like that. It's just kind of interesting in the long run. But it turns out the person that was in the cheek, because like thought that was kind of a nice touch, that whole cutting his cheek and everything. I was like, oh man, that's gonna suck. It's like, will that even heal? I was like, wait, is this even the real Alfred? It turns out it isn't the case. Because of the fear toxins, it made Bruce see what Jeremiah wanted him to see. So it makes you wonder, was that guy actually going through all that stuff? I would assume he was. Like, all that stuff probably really was happening to him, but because he's such a psychopath himself, he was probably like, yeah, this is all for Jeremiah. You do it to me so that we can mess with Bruce Wayne. Like, they were get a laugh out of it. So not unless all of that was just being projected because of Bruce's fears and stuff like that. So, like, none of that was actually happening to him. I feel like it's probably more likely the latter rather than the former, but I mean, who's to say? Either way. Because many things about that whole situation. For one, Bruce brought up a good point that I thought was kind of interesting. He's like, yeah, it only takes one wrong day for someone to kind of turn it into, you know, a psychopath. Because the whole point was he wants Bruce to lose everything, everyone and everything that he cares about, to kind of forge him into whatever he sees in Bruce. And Bruce talks about the fact that it's like, maybe the day that my parents died, a little bit of me like went insane, which I find funny, just because I'm sure that same argument has been made by a lot of people over the years about Batman himself. It's like, oh yeah, Bruce Wayne's parents died, so he decided to dress up like a bat and beat the crap out of criminals. It's like, doesn't sound like the most sane person. And I think that's why that kind of balance, that relationship has always happened between him and the Joker, because you have to admit on some level, to do what Batman does, you have to be at least a little bit crazy. You have to be a little bit broken on the inside to do what he does. Kind of like, you know, I was about to say something, but I was like, no. I mean, I feel like people have always said that the man with no fear is kind of Batman's whole thing, but I was like, no, that's Daredevil's thing, isn't it? I mean, it could be both their things, because I mean, to be fair, Batman kind of uses fear as a weapon himself. I don't know, nevertheless. But, you know, like, Selena was kind of telling him, like, that's not the case. That Jeremiah is kind of wrong about, like, what's there inside of Bruce, you know, so. And then there was also the team up I wasn't expecting, and that was Raish going to Jeremiah. But once again, it's because of the vision he had. And it's something I brought up. It's like, I was like, because I was thinking about that when he had the vision. I was like, is that supposed to represent like what Jeremiah as the Joker was going to do to the city? Or is that what Raish was going to do to the city? It seems like it's more a combination, because for him, he only wants to, and he said it then, it's like he was the fuel, like the fires of Gotham. He wants it to forge Bruce into who he's supposed to be. And it seems like they both want the same thing. It's like, this isn't about Gotham. It's about Bruce Wayne. They both see, you know, because Jeremiah sees the potential of what, like I said, he sees, I think, a lot of himself in Bruce, in a sense of like, you could easily just be driven, you know, go insane but stay sane, you know. And it's kind of, I guess, like I said, like, obviously Batman has his way of dealing with his pain and everything he went through, his quote-unquote insanity, and being the superhero that he is. So, you know, like I said, Jeremiah sees that within him, and obviously so does Raish. So obviously the last thing we see is Jeremiah shooting Selena, and then like Alfred beating the ever-living crap out of him. Like, this is supposed to break Bruce. So I'm curious to see where this takes us. Immediately my brain goes, well, there is one means of handling this, and it's the same thing that healed Alfred at the end of season 3, the Lazarus Pit. Like I said, we haven't seen it, but I feel like that technically could be a means. Like, I don't know if that's where they're going to set up, or whether it's just going to be her in a hospital and he's going to be driven by rage. And obviously, like, Jeremiah's probably being taken care of. He's probably going to get locked up at the end of this. But it's also going to be like, okay, like, maybe it's meant to be like, oh, we're going to push Bruce to try and kill. Because this is going to be one of those situations again, like, oh, he's right here in front of me, I should kill them. But obviously his whole situation with Raish, you know, he never wants to go through that again. Like, potentially killing Raish, like, spiraled him. Not potentially, I mean, he did actually kill Raish. That wasn't like some illusion. It's like, no, Raish was actually full on dead, so. But Raish sees the potential to what Bruce can be. I don't know if it's necessarily just being the Dark Knight, but or if it's just kind of like, oh. Because I mean, obviously, like, typically he has connection to, like, the League of Shadows anyway, but that's why I'm kind of like, I don't know whether this is supposed to be still be kind of like, oh, like, Bruce is still going to be my rightful heir. It's like, oh, I thought Barbara could take it one direction, but now maybe with his new visions, he sees that Bruce is the true heir, the one who can take things. But, I mean, I don't know. We'll see in the long run what ends up happening. Very interested to see what happens, because next week's episode is in fact the season finale, and I'm curious to see how they wrap this entire season up, what surprises they have in store for us. It's also, really quickly, it's also something I forgot to ever note about. I don't think I've noted that about this Lazarus Pit too. It doesn't seem like it necessarily has the same, well, to be fair, anyone that's ever had any contact with the Lazarus Pit has been alive and just been wounded, and it heals their wounds. So I don't know, like, if coming back from the dead will drive you insane like it does in Arrow. I don't know if that's something I've talked about. I feel like I never brought that up even last season about that. That's kind of a big distinction between the two. But like I said, it's just because no one dead has gone into the Lazarus Pit. Like I said, I don't know. Maybe that could be something they set up for Selena, and that could end up having a huge effect on her and Bruce's relationship going forward or something like. I don't know. Like I said, I'm very interested to see what the season finale has in store for us next week. And now moving on to this week's episode of Arrow. This episode, Diaz has done it. He's decided to go after each and every member of the team. Each one kind of having their little moments with their loved ones. Except for Dinah, she was kind of going all vigilante because she needed to blow off some steam. But everyone was being attacked. I'll admit, that thing with Dinah being like, oh, that was one thing about, sound waves. And they bounce. And she uses her powers and pushes back like that. I was like, that's pretty sick. But nevertheless, everyone nearly avoids, things don't work out. Luckily, sadly for Curtis, because Nick takes some hits for him, so he's in the hospital the entire episode, which kind of gets Curtis acting a little reckless, which is interesting because it was actually Dinah who had actually pull him back, because it's like, yo, I've literally been down that same road. I was so angry and consumed by vengeance that I let it cloud my judgment, and it's like, you're just going to get yourself killed if you keep going down this route. So it's like Curtis was there for her during that whole situation. Obviously, she didn't really want to take his advice at the time, but like this time she's trying to be there for him. So, because I love this, like Team Arrow kind of reunites temporarily. I mean, it's because it's like, for now, I know all of you don't really trust me, but we got to put all our stuff aside, because we need to take him down, because Diaz is coming after not just them, but the people they love. Because it's actually, like I said, this episode plays into what I've already stated, and the show's already stated about Diaz. He's a loose cannon in the sense of, like, he is easily aggravated. He had this whole calculated plan about taking Oliver down. The moment that didn't work, he was like, fuck it, and decided he wants to take them all down himself. Like, he started off kind of almost being like a scalpel, but now he ended up turning into a chainsaw. Yes, I've been using that analogy a lot lately because of Legends of Tomorrow, but nevertheless, he even had the lady from the quadrant being like, yo, you need to calm the hell down. Like, we were back, and he was like, oh, you'll be so quiet, ruling things from the shadows. And it's like, now you turned everything into a big scene. I mean, Diaz feels like he can do whatever the hell he wants. He literally owns the entire city, so there's no stopping him on that front. So yeah, it kind of makes sense for him to kind of go buck wild. I even love your boy Anatoly turning things around, and it's like Diaz was suspicious of him, but it's like, yo, shouldn't you be asking about the quadrant lady? Like, look at her. Don't you think it's a little suspicious? Oliver and them show up, and she just happens to show up to save us. It's like, yo, she planned that, because it's like, oh, she's trying to get you to bend down to her will, which pokes at Diaz, and who's like, yo, I've been to no one. It's like, he's so smart and calculated, but when you get him fired up, he doesn't think. he's very bullheaded and thick-headed, which kind of can ultimately be his downfall, you know, when it's all said and done. He even goes as far as killing the lady, even though she was literally an ally. Because my assumption is she had someone following Diaz, or at the very least she kept eyes on Diaz, and the moment she kind of, you know, knew something was going down, she stepped into action because she was already following him to make sure everything stayed in line. So she was just being a good ally, but he ended up killing one of them. I mean, in the long run, the way things kind of set up, it seems like he was going to do it nonetheless. Because once for Diaz, it's like he doesn't just want a piece of the pie. He wants everything. Because for Diaz, nothing is ever enough. It's so interesting. He spent so much time breaking up Team Arrow, and he has allies in this situation, but he's slowly killing them off because it's like, nope. You know, he asked for people to have loyalty, but it's like, you've already shown the fact of the matter is you don't care about people. The moment they stop being useful, you're going to kill them. You're likely to kill them anyway, even if they are useful, because they are just a means to an end to you just getting more power in the end. That's why I'm surprised at the end he didn't just kill the final dude. So at the very least, this means that right now he has 3/4 of the quadrant's power because he's already killed 3 members now. Himself, yeah. Because he killed the first dude, and now he killed her, and now killed the other dude. So that's interesting to have that much power on his own. I mean, he already literally had an entire city. Like, he already has all the cops under his payroll. He's got officials and stuff like that. So it's like his army was already stacked. Now he's got the power of an entire, like, shadow organization under his belt too. I mean, we still don't even know what the full scope of what that looks like. I mean, to be fair, they are the quadrant for a reason, and like I said, he's got 3/4 of that army under his control. I mean, really, it's probably more like 90%, because I'm sure he's going to leave that dude to 10%. No, he'll probably leave him 1%. Hell, probably I kind of assume he's probably leaving the dude alive, but it's like, your people answer to me, you know, because I'm majority leader in this situation, so. And you even see the way Anatoly looking at him. It's like, yep, he can see that Diaz is spiraling, and I'm wondering, is that kind of part of his plan? Because like I said, Anatoly is slimy for doing that. It's like twisting. I was like, what are you going to do? And it's like he twisted that narrative pretty damn quickly. So I think Anatoly's probably looking for his chance to strike. But even Anatoly wants to try and make it out of this alive, because even he's like, yeah, I need to be careful. One false move and Diaz will kill me. He's just looking for an excuse to kill anybody, because he's driven by paranoia and stuff like that. That's the kind of person that he is. So, like I said, he can be smart when he wants to be. He is street smart, but, you know, and tactically he's smart, but the problem is, like, his rage and his anger kind of gets the best of him. It's kind of interesting, because that's the whole situation with, like, the same thing that drove Dinah, that drove Curtis, it's there. Like, you know, Diaz has had that anger and rage inside him his entire life, and he tries to keep it bottled up, but the moment, like, he has anger. He literally has anger control issues, which is interesting. It's an interesting flaw to have for, you know, a character like him. So, but obviously, this whole situation also brought up many different questions, because obviously Felicity wants to do things, but Oliver doesn't want her kind of caught up in everything. You know, but Felicity's like, yo, I've been here the entire time. Like, it's not like this is the first time I've been out in the field. Besides, it's going to be Lila going in there. But I appreciate her being like, oh, so how do you and John handle the whole, like, you guys work together so well? And she's like, Lila's like, you're really asking me marital advice now? She's like, yeah, I know it's the wrong. And that's like, you know, Oliver, I feel like he doesn't really kind of respect me in the whole field situation. And Lila's like, well, the fact of the matter is, we used to bump heads a lot about that. But it's like, we then kind of realized, like, even under these dangerous circumstances, we should appreciate the time that we do have with each other, even if it's in these circumstances. And she also talks about, and getting divorced helps. Which, to be fair, Oliver and Felicity kind of went down that route, because the whole, like, her splitting up with him during season 4, and then them kind of, like, not being together for a while, then getting back together. So you can make the argument. I mean, they were engaged before too, so the argument could be made. Borderline kind of went down the route already, so maybe they're kind of already a step in that same direction, not necessarily the right direction. So I also love John and Lila too, just because it's in the hallway. He's like, Lila, behind you, and he shoots it, and she's like, honey, I would have gotten it. He's like, I know, honey. And it's just kind of like almost like a Mr. and Mrs. Smith thing. Even later on, when, like, the gas is pouring out, they're taking dudes down, switching the mats back and forth. I'm like, that's pretty damn tight. I guess Renee didn't have his mask, because I just couldn't help but note. I was like, yo, Renee, you running around without your mask on. I mean, I guess in the long run, maybe the way his mask is designed, it wouldn't have really helped him anyway. So I guess it being cloudy in there, maybe it would have, like, messed with his, I don't know. It's just kind of interesting. He just started running around without his mask on. I thought it was kind of interesting. But yeah. the end, John kind of made Oliver realize something because, like, Oliver, like, talks about the fact is Felicity almost getting killed. What she did was very dangerous, like, at the very least, because at the same time, it's like you did that without really anyone knowing to. So, is he going to do something crazy? At least let other people know you're going to do something crazy. But the moment she was like, I promise I'm not going to do anything stupid, it's like, you're going to do something stupid. I didn't know what, but like I said, it's something that needed to be done, but at the same time, it's like you're taking a risk you don't need to take. Because it's like, because for Oliver, because Felicity also brought a good point. It's like, well, Lila's a mom too, but you're not stopping her. It's like, well, Lila's a soldier. She's well trained. It's like, well, to be fair, if you got a problem, you could train. Wasn't he training Felicity for a little while? Wasn't she training with the others? Like, not training in the same sense, but if you get her trained up enough, I think you wouldn't have to worry about it as much. But, because obviously he's just being very protective. It's like, obviously he sets a double standard for everyone else, for Felicity, because it's like, you're the woman I love, you're my wife, you're a mom now. So it's like, obviously, I want to, I changed the rules for you because things are different between us. Like beforehand, yeah, like we had our relationships, but it's like where we are right now has made our relationship different because you are a mom to William. You were very important to him. And I don't want to take that away from him. I don't want you to, be, so it's just, you can understand where they're both coming from because it's like, for Felicity, it's like, once again, it's like, we've been through this together for years. I've had your back as Overwatch. And that's something Diggle was getting at. She's had your back just as much as you've had yours. The thing is, you have to trust that you were there to protect her. But you understand Oliver's point too. It's like, well, who's to say I'm going to be there in time to do it? But Oliver kind of thinks about it later on. He's like, you're right. The fact of the matter is I have to believe in you taking care of yourself. And I also have to trust in my own ability to make sure that you're okay, that, we have each other's back, because it's something he kind of got lost in his whole, like, handling things alone situation. They're stronger together, I also appreciate Diaz got those burns on his face and stuff like that because of the explosion. It's kind of sad because now they literally have no bases because the bunker was destroyed. Now this one was blown up. Yes, it was more so by their hand, but still it sucks because now they literally have no place. I mean, they have their individual places. I would assume they're going to meet up at Felicity's old place. I mean, I guess that counts as, because that counts as their office, doesn't it? Like Felicity's old place that, like, I think Curtis was taking Nick to, because that's not Curtis's place, isn't it? I mean, because that's more their work area now, because I think, so it's kind of like, oh yeah, like, because before him and Nick were going to go on their date and everything, so. It was interesting because I would have loved to see what was on that flash drive, because apparently it was saying like, oh, this is all the financial stuff, kind of all the people that were under Diaz's control. Because I mean, more so, it's like probably outing all the people once it's kind of made public, all that information. It's like, okay, then probably outside people can come in and kind of take him down. They didn't outright say it, but obviously a big way to attack Diaz would be through his money. I mean, like without his money, his operation would kind of fall apart. So I don't know if they were directly going to attack with the money, but it was more so like, oh, we can take all these people down. Like I said, probably go to an outside group, which obviously kind of plays into the last bit of the episode, but I'll get to that soon enough. The group also doesn't know the fact is that Diaz has Laurel. That's kind of interesting enough too. I don't think Quentin knows either, because Quentin didn't pop up this episode, but I'm sure he's going to be the one that informed him. So the ultimate situation too is going to be like, are they going to save Laurel or not? Because obviously Diana's going to be like, nah, let her die. But we'll see what the others kind of decide to do, because, Renee and Curtis might have her back on this. But at the same time, it's like, it might be like, well, that's not our thing. I also appreciate the fact is that William had to ask when it was all said and done. He's like, are they dead? And Oliver's like, nope, they're knocked out. Because later on, it's like they're tied up and everything. But like he got that other dude. He shot the dude and he slammed the door on his head. It's like, ugh. It's like, don't come near my family. Like, Oh yeah, and there was also the other question too that came up this episode. It's like, what do you do with Diaz when it's all said and done? Like, even if we capture Diaz, what do you do? It's not like you can hold him under prison on Leanne Yu. That's going. You can't really, because Argus can't really get too more involved in what they did, because they're not like an actual police unit. She's just getting the number of people she's gotten, the supply she's gotten so far is within her power, but she can't do too much. Like I said, this is a government organization. And even though they do kind of sketchy stuff, I'm sure they've kind of pulled back on some of the sketchy stuff they've done under Lila's control. But to be fair, it's hard to say, especially with like the timeline that Zari is from, like, Argus kind of running things, which is still kind of like, it makes you wonder how that's all going to get to where that is. But nevertheless, it's kind of like there's a limit to how much she can do, because this isn't kind of their jurisdiction. It's not their wheelhouse. It's not their fight essentially. But obviously Lila's in this because like Diggle's in it and all the rest of the team is in it. So, but it's like, what do you do with Diaz? You can't really necessarily lock him up with every person in. I mean, where do you go from here too? Because literally the entire police force is dirty. So when you arrest them, and what do you have left? That is the question. Do you hire like a whole, like that would mean literally Star City would have to wipe the slate clean and hire and vet every officer to fill the forces back up until then. I mean, especially kind of interesting considering the fact is that vigilantes are kind of like on the big no-no side of things right now, which is funny considering that. And the fact is you have all these dirty cops. It's interesting, like the parallels and just like where everything kind of stands right now. That is something they'll probably never actually directly handle. I mean, they'll handle it, but probably mention it, but you'll probably never see like him doing that, like literally firing, because you can't trust these people after they've been dirty under these circumstances. Like no matter what, it's like, yeah, you get locked up, or I don't know, maybe they will forgive him. It's like, how do you trust anyone? I mean, they probably won't even trust each other either. It's like, well, you were dirty. Well, you were dirty too. So how am I supposed to trust you? How am I supposed to? It's going to be that type of conversation, especially Dinah being a cop too. To be fair, she got fired. I'm sure all that's going to change when she gets rehired, and as well as any other cops like Nick, who are good along the same way. So I don't know, a lot of questions that need to be answered. And we also have the little thing at the end, and it's like Oliver going to the one person he knows he can go to out of this entire situation, and that is Agent Watson. And she wants two things. It's like, oh, admit it. And he's like, yes, I'm the Green Arrow. And she's like, okay. And the other thing, he's like, what do you want? Immediately my brain goes, when it's all said and done, she's going to want Oliver to either admit to publicly being the Green Arrow, or she wants him to go to jail. It's going to be one of those two. I mean, Oliver will probably go ahead and say okay to it. Like, either that, or she's going to want Oliver to be her personal little puppet to kind of like, she's a quote unquote honorable FBI agent, but who's to say she won't try and spin things to be like, you do this for me, I scratch your back, you scratch mine, so I need you to do some wet work, or at the very least, like, be there for the FBI, kind of being like the FBI's superhero to kind of handle things. I'm kind of leaning more towards like, when it's all said and done, I'll help you take down Diaz, but then you're going to go down with him, because you can't be forgiven for all the stuff that you've done. But Oliver will probably make that sacrifice. If it means saving Star City, if it means protecting his family, he'll make that sacrifice. So this could be where they end up saying, which is interesting considering the fact is that Oliver kind of spent so much of his life already on a prison, that being Leanne Ugrid. He wasn't all there all the time, but those chains that bound him and Leanne Yu, they kind of stuck with him all this time. Like, he's still kind of being wrapped around by those chains, dude. Not the easiest thing to break after his experiences in those 5 years, but that's immediately where my mind goes about Agent Watson. Like I said, it all depends on who she is. Like, if she's a good guy, I'm sure it's just going to be like, yeah, I'm going to arrest you when it's all said and done. She's a bad guy, she's going to try to use good guy, borderlining bad guy, in a sense of like, she's kind of like that, oh, well, I'm a good guy, but I'm going to use you for purposes of like, almost kind of like a Suicide Squad situation of like, you're going to serve us and do what we need you to do type of thing. I don't know. Because I'm sure, because it always seems like Agent Watson probably had her own ulterior motives behind everything. Like, I don't know. Like I said, maybe she legitimately is just trying to be a good person. But that's what I think they're setting things up to be. Like Oliver going to jail if it means taking down him. Which, once again, constantly making comparisons between the two, because it's like, well, Barry was actually in jail, which is kind of going to be an interesting thing. I mean, to be fair, he was set free because it's like, oh yeah, like DeVoe's still alive, which is, man, that's kind of an interesting thing. I didn't even talk about it in the Flash episode, but nevertheless, it's like, oh yeah, everyone, it's kind of like, well, Oliver's not the Green Arrow, but now, you know, it's like, I'm sure there's going to be people who still suspect him, even though most people, the general public is going to be like, oh no, it's totally like Tommy Merlin. He's totally the Green Arrow. Like, he popped up and everything. Wow, that's crazy. But there's still the whole like, well, Oliver's not mayor and stuff like that, which makes you wonder, will he ever go back to being mayor? Probably not. Probably when it's all said, well, to be fair, if he goes to jail or not, there's that. But most likely Quentin's going to stay in power and stuff like that. So I'm like I said, I'm very interested to see what the next episode has in store, like how this all plans to play out, whether it's exactly like that or not. His next week's episode is in fact the season finale, so I'm curious to see how this all plays out. Will Oliver go to jail? How will things end with Diaz? Is we going to end with a dead Diaz and a live Diaz? I don't know, man. Diaz doesn't seem like the type of dude you want to let live, and he doesn't seem like the type of dude that's going to go down, like, unless you put him down, and down, not just down, So ultimately, we'll just have to wait and see what the season finale has in store for us next week. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.